Hey guys, before we start this episode, I wanted to talk to you about Type 1 Lifting. So, Type 1 Lifting is a clothing line that proceeds of the shirts and tanks and everything else goes to the Children's Diabetes Foundation. So, this all came about with me and seeing a 5-year-old girl in the emergency department that had new onset of diabetes. So, just take a look at the website. It's www.type1lifting.com. So just check it out. If you don't buy anything, that's perfectly fine. I would just like for you just to take a look and just see what we have. So, like I said before, www.type1lifting.com. And guys, I hope you enjoy the show. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. I have a great guest. His name's Christopher McMahon. How's everything going?
Everything is going well. I am very excited to be here chatting with you, Thomas. I think the things that your charity does, and in hopes of raising money for children's diabetes, I don't know. It's just exciting to me, and I think it's fantastic that you're able to do that. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
A great day.
Yeah. Well, I actually connected with you with one of the people at my one of the people I know at my gym. So he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this guy?" And he sent me your Instagram page, and I was like, "No." Well, and this guy has a insulin pump in his pocket, so. It's like, oh, another diabetic that's into fitness. Cool. So that's how I linked up with you and met up with you. So I was great. I'm grateful that he actually showed me your Instagram page because your way of training is completely different from what I typically do, and that's why I wanted to interview you and kind of get just pick your brain up a little bit and how the way you train compared to like other people. But the first question I want to talk about is when did you become a diabetic?
Yeah, so I've been diabetic for a little over 20 years now. I was diagnosed when I was 10 years old, so that was 2000. So I think it's actually my diaversary is what some people call it. I think was in either May or June of 2000.
Yep.
And at that entire year, I was sick all the time.
Yep.
My parents had no idea what was going on. I had this horrible stomach ache, and in the beginning the stomach ache was kind of me just it was small, and I just kind of wanted to get out of going to school.
Yeah.
But then over time it got worse and worse, and I was like, oh no, like this is an actual thing now. What is it? And I remember having to go get CAT scans on my stomach and going through the whole thing, and they just had no idea. They thought it was an ulcer or something of that nature. And I can remember being in the doctor's office, the pediatrician's office, and them going to send me home again, and my father went to the doctor. Why don't you test him for diabetes? And the pediatrician at the time was like, no, he has he's a perfectly healthy 10-year-old. We're not going to do that. And my dad has a family history of it. It's on my mom's side, but I happen to be adopted, so it's really they had no idea.
Yeah.
If it ran in my family, the paperwork said I had no history of any of these things. So my dad was just like, just do it, and they did it. And I can remember it was the last time I had a huge sugar-filled meal. They were like, go eat whatever you want. It was like your last rights meal as someone without diabetes. And I can remember I ate pancakes and a waffle covered in maple syrup, and had an omelet. I had because I was also a 10-year-old boy, just who apparently, as we get to be that age, we're just ravenous dump trucks.
Yeah. Yep.
Fill it in. I have a 7-month-old son right now, and I can only imagine what's going to be because he just seems to have a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
At this moment in time. So I did that, and it came back, and I had diabetes, and I went to the hospital right away. And I was very lucky because I was still in the honeymoon phase, so my pancreas was still producing a little bit of insulin, so I was able to get away with eating whatever I wanted,
mm-hmm.
which made it a little bit easier, but also harder at the same time, because then it was but I'm fine if I have X or Y.
Yeah.
I don't need as much insulin as someone else. And that was the real battle, especially as I went through my teenage years.
Yeah.
It was I want to eat what I want when I want. I don't want to wake up at the crack of dawn to give myself insulin. And that's when they put me on an insulin pump as soon as like the technology was a little bit better. I went on a Medtronic pump, and I was finally able to like sleep in and give myself insulin and still have to count carbs and do all that. And like, to be there to where at now basically like my phone tells me everything, and like I can calculate everything in apps, and like it's just, if I was to tell my 10-year-old self that I'd basically be like a robot, like I'd be so down for it. Like it's a completely different experience now.
Yeah. So when you had that, it was kind of like, so in high school, it was kind of like a burnout phase for you where you're like, you know, I don't want to, you know, follow the rules. Obviously being a teenager, you're just like, you don't want to listen to anybody, but you know, how did you actually snap out of like, you know, that burnout phase to like, you know, realize like, hey, I really need to take this seriously?
That's a great question. So I am the term I like to use, or that has been used by some people, I don't really use it anymore, but I was a skinny fat kid. I was able to eat. I just had a super fast metabolism and could eat whatever I wanted at any time. And when I started college, I was 5'10", same height I am now, and I weighed 118 pounds. So I was just a super skinny kid, super lanky, could eat whatever I want. But the moment that it kind of snapped back for me was one of two things. Number one, my mom was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Mm-hmm. So I watched this very vivacious, healthy woman suddenly have her body like riddled with cancer. And at 18, I was graduating. I was about to head off to college, and I got to watch all this happen. Not even I got to watch and witness it, take it in, and make a decision for myself. Like, can I put whatever I want in my body and not fear the repercussions, or can I try a salad? Can I try actually counting my carbs a little more diligently? Mm-hmm. Can I use this awesome piece of technology that I have on my hip to its full potential? Can I actually use the internet and do a little research about some of the studies that are coming out, some of the science that's coming out? Like, can I do my due diligence? And the answer to that was yes. And then to fold in, the next phase was I was in school at the time for a musical theater, and we were doing a production of this show, and I was very fortunate to be cast in it, and I had to play a prisoner in South America, and the exact words from the director were, you have to go to the gym and exercise. You cannot look malnourished and weak. Like, you can't. So I remember taking that advice, calling up my buddy who was going to school for exercise physiology at the time, and I was like, can you train me? And he's like, I've never trained anyone before, but sure, come over. Yeah. So I went from like never touching a weight, never stepping foot in the gym, to being cast in this part, and then realized, all right, I got to go. And it went from never lifting to working out 5 to 6 days a week, from never counting calories to eating about 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day. Yep. And by the end of the summer, I had put on about 40 to 45 pounds of muscle. Yeah. And it was the only reason why it happened so fast was because I literally went from being like a beanpole to just finally eating, and eating like relatively well. I think I refined it over time. I don't have as much bloating and indigestion these days because I'm more aware of what my body needs in this time. But at that phase of my life, it was just, wow, you can actually do this. Yeah. Okay, it's possible. You just have to actually dial it in and pay a little attention and have accountability. That was the other thing. And awesome. I haven't looked back since. It's really been, a blessing to have all of those things. Very cool.
Now, did that kind of like pave the way of you like wanting to getting to personal training, or how did that work?
Totally. So actually, I had that same guy, my buddy Tim, if you're listening, hello. But he had graduated college early and was crashing on my couch as I was finishing up my last semester at NYU. Mm-hmm. And he was working at this gym. He was working at this gym called Equinox, and he was like, hey, when you graduate, you like health and fitness, you do it. It's something you enjoy. Why not come work here? Why not? I can get you an interview. And I remember thinking, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I basically do what's in like men's health and fitness. Yep. Why would I tell someone what to do? I don't know it. But then I also had the conversation. I was graduating with my degree with the master's, with the bachelor's of music. And I was like, I don't want to wait tables while I'm auditioning. Like, that's the one thing. I don't want to have to work all hours standing up and be burnt out, like, and not be able to do anything. So, all right, I'll just go.
Yeah.
I'll make my own schedule. That was the big goal, was to be able to make my own schedule, schedule my clients so I can go audition in the morning, work at night. So I interviewed, I got the job, and like the rest is history. I was very fortunate to work at one of their clubs that was a flagship club. And basically what that means is they had what's now called Tier X, which is like their most advanced trainers who have had the most experience. And literally the company at the time, different times now, but at the time they would pour hundreds of thousands of dollars into educating these top trainers.
Yep.
And I was fortunate that my club happened to have the top trainers. Like, they had the top of the top. And for some reason, I was not afraid to ask questions. I was not afraid to be told I was wrong. I was not afraid to bug people and want to learn. And for some reason, one of the trainers there was like, sure, I'll take you under my wing. I'll teach you a little bit, like, but you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
And you have to come back to me with questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the beginning of, like, this passion for training people and helping people, but not only getting them to see physical results, but the mental and emotional side. That's what I found that's what really lights a fire for me now.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, totally agree.
That's really what it is now. Like the seeing the small progress and understanding that, oh, okay, I took the stairs today instead of taking the escalator or instead of taking the elevator. Like, I'm going to celebrate that as if I just PR'd.
Yep.
Like, that's really what it is, because you celebrate all those things, you have gratitude for those small things every single day, then you are like, you're on cloud 9 every single day.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Like the
totally
muck
agree.
of it, the small stuff, like, it's beautiful. It's there for a reason.
Yep.
And that's the thing. I think that's the thing that we miss so much. And I don't know if you have an experience with that, but with your diabetes, it's like, great, I had this whole plan. I have my workout stacked. I know what I'm going to do today. I know that I have some Olympic lifting that I need to get done because I'm working on X, Y, or Z. The blood sugar's low.
Yep.
My blood sugar's like 300. I can't do this right now.
Yep.
But it's like, no, what can I get done, like, in this time I'm sitting in and hanging out? Is it like, can I reprogram myself for the day? Can I read a couple pages in this book that I've been dying to read? Can I sit and meditate? Can I realign myself so then I can step up to the bar and I can just, that's going right up. It's going up. I saw you on Instagram. Those overhead squats, like,
that took a long time coming. Like, I've been doing CrossFit for, like 7 years. And the funny thing is like, I never did, like, I would do the 300 workout because I got it from Men's Health magazine, like you were talking before. Like, I get my workouts there. And then I found this thing about CrossFit, and I was like, oh, okay. I kind of bashed it a little bit. And then, like, when I was in the Air Force, they actually had a CrossFit gym at the Air Force base I was doing my training in. And I was like, all right, I'll try it out. And they're like, usually there's like a 2-week on-ramp program. And then the guys look at me, they're like, yeah, I think you'd be all set. You don't need to go on the on-ramp program at all. So I just started doing CrossFit from there and, like, learning how to do it. And, like, all the weights that I'm doing now, that's from, like, years and multiple times doing it and practicing it. So I'm surprised that I actually lift the weights that I do right now is like at an age of 41. So
yeah. I think you said something really cool to me, which was like, you're now doing CrossFit. You've been practicing it. You've been working on it, refining it, kind of chiseling away at it. But in the beginning, you were like, yeah, I'm kind of going to bash this a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it. And I think, isn't it super powerful when you're able to look at something that you don't really understand and then step away and see, oh, there is, like, a benefit there.
Yeah.
Or to say like, oh, I don't really understand why someone's doing it. But what's really rad is that they're doing it. Like,
yeah.
They're showing up. Like, when I first started in this industry, it was really easy to look at the person on the power plate for like 35 minutes and be like, you're wasting your time. Why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, whoa, they were able to show up, step on that power plate, bang out squats, bang out glute bridges, whatever they're doing on that power plate while it's vibrating. And, like, I may not understand why they're doing it, but I can't write someone else's story.
Yep.
Like, they write their own story, and that's what's so unique and so cool about it.
Yeah.
And that inspires me to talk to someone and be like, why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. Cool. Let me reassess why I'm doing something. Let's look at it through that lens.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So another reason why I wanted to get you on the podcast is because your style of training is a little different compared to, you know, the typical global gym or like CrossFit box, and it's more like, I don't know, is it like functional movement, or like, I don't know what you call it or what it's called, but like, what is your style of training and how is it different compared to like what you see at the typical global gym?
Yeah, that's a great question. I used to think it was functional training, and I love that term because it can kind of be a blanket statement. Anything, the way I look at it, it's basically I move so that I can move.
Yeah.
I train, the way I train is so that I can go do the things I need to be able to do every day. This great company that I've done a lot of things with, and that I'm like one of their lead trainers in the country, is GMB, and their whole thing is physical autonomy, being able to wake up every morning and know exactly what you need to do to be able to go get things done.
Yeah.
And that's really how I train.
Mm-hmm.
So the cool thing is I can take someone who is doing a WOD, and I can look at them, I can assess them right now based off, like, I could assess your overhead squat watching you do it, and I know exactly what you need to be able to just do it with a little more ease.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to overhead squat that much weight. I know how to program it, but me personally, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I can understand, like, all right, they need T-spine mobility. What are some movements that we can sneak into their prep work, the work that they do to prepare their body, that's instantly going to allow them to have that overhead capability?
Yep.
Like, that's how I look at it. I have to look at, like, what is your goal? Why are you showing up every single day? And then I can program around that, whether it be body weight movements, whether it be some mobility movements, whether it be yoga, restorative movements, whether it be just like getting you ridiculously strong. Maybe we need to work on your overhead mobility, and then maybe we need to work on being able to do some freakishly strong Turkish get-ups, so then you have the shoulders stability in all planes of motion. So then when that bar, you have two arms that are lifting the weight over your head, you're like, oh, that's so much easier now.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yeah.
So like, that's how I like to program things and look at things. It's like, why are you doing it? And then how is this going to help you get there? So I've kind of dabbled in all things, but really my primary thing is body weight movement. Personally, for me,
Yep.
That's what my body responds to best. And then I also use kettlebells, and I also use other modalities like the Viper, which is really cool. You might see me on Instagram throwing around this rubber cylinder.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Yeah. I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, so Viper is really cool. It stands for vitality, performance, reconditioning, all of these great things, that recovery, like all these things we need. Basically, this guy, Michel Dalcourt, he went to GIFT, which is Gary Gray's Institute of Functional Training, basically. He's the grandfather of it all. He's the guy who creates all that stuff. But so he went there, he looked at people moving, and he was like, how can I get someone ridiculously strong? And how can I have them move better in their body? And it started by looking at ice skaters. He was working a lot with ice skaters, and he saw these guys who would train in the off season. They would go to the gym and they would do their compound lifts. They would do their 5x5s. They would do everything to get ridiculously strong. However, they were being beat to the puck, and they were being manhandled by these tall, lanky guys who spent the entire off season working on the farm, just moving bales of hay, hurdling, whatever they're doing. Just basically that is what they were working on. And he's like, oh, how do we take that functional movement and put it into training? And so they created the Viper. Basically, is like, we can move in odd positions. Our body's meant to lift, to shift, to schlift, which is a shift and a lift, to be able to do all these different things. And the Viper's just another way to do it. It's just, you could do the same thing with dumbbells. You really could. It just, you don't have 2 points of contact. You have 1 point that's on each side, and it becomes that much more challenging.
Yeah.
So I really love that tool, especially for reconditioning and flushing the tissue and getting that liquid and fluid back to those areas that are kind of drained. Mm-hmm. It's all about training the fascia. Yeah. Which is the important thing.
So is it? Could you like if you don't have it at a typical gym, could you use kind of like that half Bosu ball with like a little platform and kind of use that as the same thing as a Viper? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. I totally, you could do stuff like that, or you could take the way I like to teach it is you can have someone just do it with their body weight. So some of the motions you see, if I have someone I know this is not a visual medium, but if you were to be in a tall kneeling position. So a tall kneeling position is just both knees are on the ground and they are bent. Your back feet are flexed, so your toes are flexed on the floor. So you're standing up tall. And you were to tuck your hips up towards the sky, and then you were to lean back as if you were in a camel pose.
Okay.
That's a restorative position.
Okay.
That's a position that we can do to stretch the whole front line of the body. So if I was to do that after doing some deadlifts, I'm going to be opening up the front of my body, which is going to feel nice.
Yeah.
If I wanted to do that with a Viper, I might have it to the right of my body, and I might lean back so there's some extra load there. So I have to have tensile strength. I have to strengthen everything in my body. I have to open everything up. But if we don't have a Viper, all you got to do is stick one arm back when you do it, and you're suddenly going to feel that tension. So we can use our body weight in different ways. I think that's the big thing. We need to consider, what do I need? How am I going to get it? What part of my body can allow me to do that? It's kind of overwhelming, but if we work backwards and think, what is the end goal? What is the movement I need? Then we can do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So you do like online programming as well. So when you have a client just starting out and this is kind of like new to the whole like deal of like the style of your training. So do you do like videos of like how they're moving, or like what's a typical intro for your personal training session?
Yeah. So for a personal training session, it's really crazy. It's so cool. About 5 years ago, I moved into the online space. I left the gym I was working at, and I just started working online with all these different folks. And the number one thing that I need and that everyone needs is to assess.
Yep.
To assess where they are so they know if what they're doing is actually working. And then we can assess, and then we can address any of the issues that kind of pop up. That's my thinking behind it. So I do there are some standard basic movements that I like to see everyone do, and it kind of at this point in time allows me to know, okay, this is the work they need to be able to do. Mm-hmm. So for me, a squat, a push, and a basic downward dog. Like if I could see someone do those 3 movements, I have a good idea of the areas of their body that need attention.
Yep.
And then if they have a particular goal of something they want to be able to do, seeing that movement too.
Okay.
If I can I'm fortunate at this point in time that I can reverse engineer pretty much any movement you send my way. Mm-hmm. I know exactly what someone's going to need, and that's the beauty behind coaching, like online. All of my coaching, if you're working with me, we're doing nutrition work, we're doing training, and we're also doing mindset coaching. So those are all the things that I love to work with. And each one of those modalities we could do via Zoom. And for training, everything is delivered via this online platform I use called True Coach. So
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have an exercise library of probably close to like 400 videos at this point. And each one is me explaining every single movement. And you get to see my smiling face and hear my smooth voice via voiceover while you work through it. So it's kind of nice in that regard because I'm always tweaking, I'm always adjusting, and at no point is someone meant to feel like they can't do something. Mm-hmm. And at no point is someone meant to feel like they're at the wrong point of their journey, because every point along the way is the right point.
Yeah.
Which is really what one of my core beliefs, one of my core values is that no one is wrong. It's just people need to figure out what works a little easier for them, or what makes life a little easier for them when they're training. Yeah.
So you started online programming for like 5 years ago. So what kind of made you step into that? And are you like fully online and no like one-on-ones, or what is it like now?
Yeah, so I'm full due to the pandemic.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah,
I no longer see anyone in person. What I was doing a lot was, again, for that company GMB, I would travel and teach a lot for them. Mm-hmm. So I've co-taught seminars in Europe. I've been all over the world teaching, and slowly over time that shrunk back to me taking more like one-on-one clients, group clients. What we'll do now is I'll do like, you have an option. You could do like a 60-minute Zoom training session with me, where we really get into the nitty gritty and I'm picking each detail as we go along and it's a program, or we can do where it's like 3 months of coaching. So 3 months of coaching with a particular end goal in mind, whether that be nutrition, whether that be training and nutrition, or whether that be training, nutrition, and mindset.
Okay.
So they're all a big, big part of it. And before this, what I would do is I would have people send me videos, and then I would send videos back, and then we would do everything via email.
Yeah.
5 years ago, that's really where it was.
Yeah.
And now we're at the point where it's like instantaneous. Like if you are working with me, I give you 100% of my time, because to work with me, it can be expensive, and that's because you're getting what you pay for.
Yeah.
You're investing in yourself, and the only way we can make progress is if we actually take the time to invest in what we need.
Yeah.
And I think far too often we undersell our actual value.
I totally agree with that. Totally agree.
Yeah. Right? So it's like it's just like you have so much value and so much potential, so why not tap into it?
Yeah.
Right now, whatever you need to happen, you're listening to this podcast right now, whoever you are, and you are tapping into your further potential because you are going to take a next step. You are either going to click and look at type 1 lifting stuff, and you're going to invest in that, and you're going to help better someone's life who is a child who has diabetes. You are going to maybe go check out CrossFit. You're going to go check out your first CrossFit workout because your interest is piqued. Or maybe you're going to check out some of my stuff and be like, hey, it kind of does bother me when I like do a kneeling lunge. What can I do to fix that? Oh, here's a ton of tutorials that are free because I want someone to be able to move and not have pain. I think whatever choice you're making right now is the right choice. You're in it. You're in it right now, and it's happening, and that's so cool. Yeah.
So speaking of hip pain, I know you have a guide. You just talked about you have a guide on Instagram about like how to help fix hip pain. So how did all that happen, and how did it all start for you from that?
Yeah. So I think in working with, at this point, I've probably worked with hundreds of people. Maybe in my time in the online space even more, because I was working on doing a lot of work on forums with a lot of people.
Yeah.
But hip pain is something that always comes up. And especially now, so much of us, look, we have our kids at home with us and they're doing remote learning. So now we're running around with them, and then we're sitting down for like 5 Zoom meetings back to back for our job. Maybe we are a vital worker and we are still out there doing everything, and then we come home and then we sit on the couch and then we lay down and we lay on our side and we sleep funny, and then we wake up and we're walking with a little bit of a limp. That's where it comes from. I've just watched so many people deal with that, and the movements, it's a completely free routine. So all you have to do is click the link in my bio and you get this whole free routine that's basically like my favorite movements that are tried and true. They work, and how to slip them into your workout is basically like you do them in the beginning. You see how you feel, and then intuitively you say, all right, so he's having me do this thing called the A-frame, which is one of my favorite movements. Again, it's like a GMB movement from the beginning. It's a foundational movement. When I'm doing this, like my calves are on fire. I can't lower my heels. Yeah, I guess front squatting today is not going to feel great. Maybe I can spend some more time on this and then do an alternative. Maybe I could do some goblet squats instead. Maybe I could do some rear foot elevated body weight squats instead, and really work on allowing that knee to travel past my toes when I squat. So it's a lot of it is that. A lot of it's intuitive and taking what works for you and forgetting what doesn't work for you. That's the other thing. There's so much information coming at you. And with this program, you click it, you download it, you can view it on your phone on this awesome platform that you can have on iPhones. They can have their own app for it, basically. Android, I'm sorry, Google makes things a little more complicated. You have to go into your web browser, and you can still view it and still look through everything right on your phone. But what you can do is you just pull it out, you see what feels good. I recommend trying every exercise at least once or twice, seeing what feels good, and whatever feels good, try to do it daily. None of these movements take very long. 30 seconds is more than enough. And that is what I encourage. A little bit, a lot is better than a lot, a little bit. So it's we can set these big goals to stretch for like 45 minutes every other day. But the reality of it is it's probably not going to happen in the beginning.
No. No.
But we can, you can take a break from the Zoom meeting or after this podcast listen, and you can just do like a simple hip flexor stretch for like 10 seconds on each side. And then you could do it again like later. You could do 10 seconds on each side. And then it adds up. You do that every day, and it really adds up. And look how far you've gone in 365 days.
Yeah, totally. I try to. So my thing is, like, I don't stretch as much as I should, and I've kind of been noticing it because, granted, I'm working from home as well as like other people as well, and we're not really getting up to go to the bathroom because it's like literally you're walking like 2 feet just to get to the bathroom. So it's not like you go into the office, have to walk all the way down the hallway, walk there and stuff like that, and you actually like give you some breaks to actually go out and walk instead of you're sitting down for 6 to 7 hours, even more than that, because you're probably sitting on the couch watching TV. So, and obviously that's like super bad for you. Like your body's only supposed to be sitting down for, I think they did a study, it was like 4 hours max, and it's insane. Like I mean, I'm even getting hip pain too just from like sitting down because obviously my hip flexor is shrinking because I'm in this position for such a long time.
Yeah, there's so many different options too. I think this would come back to more like a lifestyle choice. Like what is happening within us? I think the power of right now is that we, for the most part, have total control over our schedule. I know that sounds weird to say, but in the actuality of things, we get to pick what we devote our time to. And with work, that's not optional. That's not optional. We usually have to work. That's how we make money. That's how we put food on the table. That's how we have a nice house over our head, whatever it might be. But what we can do is we can choose the workload we take. We can choose the breaks we take. For me, I schedule everything to a T. That's just me.
Yeah.
So if you open my Google Calendar, everything's color coded and I know where everything is. But the cool thing is I program in everything I would like to do on top of everything that I have to do or I get to do. I get to do is better because it's always a choice.
Yep.
So I have things scheduled in like I'm going to stretch from this time to this time. I am going to journal, write from this time to this time. I'm going to read 2 pages in a book at this time. Like I'll do stuff like that and I'll put it in a specific color. So for me, it's usually like a light blue. Light blue is like my favorite color, and it goes in there and it brings me joy. And then I have things that pop up that are opportunities. So like talking with you for the next, 60 minutes, that's an opportunity that popped up. That took me away from being able to do that other thing, but it's okay because when I go back and reevaluate, this is time well spent. This is something that's super important.
Yeah.
Could have been something else that popped up. I'll do it, but then I'll recognize like, okay, in the future, I am not going to spend 45 minutes doing X.
Yep.
Like that's a choice I now know. So it's awesome. It wasn't time wasted.
Yeah.
It was able for me to know.
Exactly.
And that's like a mindset shift. It's hard, but it works. And we can start small. So it might be as much as like for work, it's like, do I sit here for 45 minutes before taking a break? Or do I do hardcore work for 25 minutes and then use one of these cool apps that I can have on my computer that dings and lets me know, all right, time to stand up, time to go get water, time to use the restroom that's upstairs. Time to, every time I leave the room, I promised myself I would do 5 squats. I'm leaving the room, I'll do those 5 squats. Like it's what we choose to do in that time. That's really powerful.
Awesome. And so you also talked about mindset as well. So how do you start your new clients with mindset, and how do you, continually keep them focused with the mindset mentality that that you want them to have throughout your whole, the whole program that you're training them for?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think here's my number one piece for anyone who's interested about mindset, or that's just one term for it. You can call it whatever you want it, but the one piece is to start small. To start really, really small. Peel it back. I think often, like I said before, it's better to do a little a lot than a lot a little. I think we have this idea in our mind that there has to be a perfect moment to start. There has to be a perfect chance for us to do it. Oh, well, I'm doing a 60-minute workout today. Oh, something came up. I'm not doing anything at all. I'm just going to, right? That's really what it is. There has to be, the lighting has to be perfect. There has to be a nice breeze in the air. I have to have Phil Collins playing in the background. It has to be like all of these things in order to exercise or to move the body. I like to think of it as moving instead. But the actuality of it is perfection, and this is something that my therapist told me. Perfection is just another word for procrastination.
Yep.
So perfection is another term for procrastination. So what can we do with those 5 minutes? What can we do with those little windows of time? How are you using your time? Do you evaluate what's happening? Are you able to acknowledge what emotion you have when you are doing something? So when I decide that I want to just skip the 60 minutes altogether, or better yet, when I say I have no time to do anything, is it that I have no time, or is it that I'm choosing to allocate my time for other things? And there's always a choice. There's always freedom in our schedule. It's just sometimes we have to look a little bit harder for it.
Yeah.
And that's like the number one place we start. We start with, what is the smallest thing we can do? Mm-hmm. All right. So you're a parent. Like, I work a lot with parents who are in pain, who are super busy, who are trying to lose some weight, who are just trying to find a little consistency. And the secret is, I'm not looking for you to get 9 hours of sleep every night. I'm not looking for you to take like a 5-mile walk every day. And I'm not looking at you to exercise for 90 minutes every day. Mm-hmm. What I am looking at you to do is sleep and sleep through the night. What I am looking at you to do is to move your body when it feels good. Like, take that little 5-minute break and move and walk the stairs. I have a client, and she's a elementary school teacher. She's a former dancer. And she has one son who's at home who's 2 and a daughter who is 10 months old.
Wow.
And her husband's working all day and she's teaching all day, and they're all in their house together. And I train her and her husband. We do a lot of mindset work and nutrition work, and right now she's doing training work too. Mm-hmm. And the constant question she'll have is like, this doesn't feel good today. Like, what can I do instead? And the conversation we always have is, well, what feels good to do today?
Yeah.
What is the thing that's going to fill your cup? What fills you up? And she'll always say, I don't really know. Like, I could do some lunges, I could do some squats. I feel really overwhelmed. You know, and we got into this conversation, and my question was, well, when's the last time you danced? And she's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was like, so what if on those days those movements don't feel right? What if you just set a timer for 5 minutes and like play some music and move? Or what if you challenge yourself? Like, what if you see how many different ways you can get up and down off the floor in 5 minutes? Like, what are different options? And she's like, oh, you know, I used to do that stuff all the time. It used to be really fun. I was like, well, it used to be fun.
Can be
still
fun. Yeah.
Like, it's still fun, you know? And it's still technically, air quotes, working out. It's just you're moving your body through a full range of motion. Like, for me, that's really cool. Like, do it. I think that's a win.
Yeah, definitely. I actually had this past person on my podcast, he was talking about the same thing, just like 5 minutes and get up and dance, or just get up and move. It's like, that's the main thing. And a lot of people, they just don't do that. And obviously, like, a lot of people put a lot of stuff in their plate as well, and kind of put a lot of stuff in the back burner, and they feel defeated if they don't finish it. So like you said, I mean, for me, I'll put little things down and I'll mark it off saying, oh, I just did it. All right, I just got upstairs to get something to eat and just came back down, you know. I did, you know, an hour of phone calls or whatever like that. So, you know, just get up and cross those little things off, and if you feel a heck of a lot better towards the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. I love that you brought that up. I'm a super big proponent of, I said it already, scheduling and everything. Yeah. But something that I changed, and it completely changed my life. I used to do the same thing. On my schedule, I would have like, all right, I'd have like 4 or 5 big things. And then I would put like, okay, call mom. Okay. Pay this bill. Yep. Okay. Take out the trash. Well, those are things that totally, I'm 100% going to do them.
Yeah.
Usually because my wife tells me, you have to do that. And I'll be like, oh, you're right. I do have to do that. That's important. So I'll do those things. But if I can put 1 to 2 major things on my list and spend my time right at the beginning of whatever the workday is, I don't know if you're listening out there what your workday looks like, but for me, my days start, I choose to start my morning at 4:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I get up before everyone else is up, so I can have that time for me.
Yeah.
That's really important. And it goes with working out too. It's like you gotta set the time for yourself. Schedule it in, write it down, and if it doesn't go according to plan, that's fine. You still wrote it down and you still showed up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one thing. But by like 7 o'clock, it's then go time for me. That's when my son's getting up. I'm either going to feed him or get to work, depending on what our schedules look like for the day. And then I always tackle the hardest thing first.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be what I get done for the day, and that's okay. For a long time, I looked at it where I would try to put things on my schedule so I felt like I was doing more. So I got that little pat on the back from the imaginary person that tells us we're a good person because we are being hyper productive. But here's the secret. If your things are getting done on your list and you only have 2 things and they're getting done, well, that deserves a pat on the back because it means you're really good at what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, celebrate the fact you are so efficient at your schedule. You're so efficient at maximizing your time. You're so efficient at showing up present in whatever you're doing that you're able to get things done. The second you say, well, I didn't get X, I didn't get this done, I didn't get this done, you're choosing to find that negativity in the positivity.
Yeah.
The fact that you got things done. You woke up, you put your feet on the ground this morning. That is a huge step forward. You could have easily stayed in bed all day, and there are people who do choose to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there before.
Yeah.
I've battled with depression and anxiety for a large majority of my life, and once I was able to acknowledge the fact that everything is a choice, there's so much freedom in that. It's so freaking scary to acknowledge that there is complete freedom in acknowledging that you always have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Exactly.
always the right choice, too. Whatever you're making is the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because those moments of darkness are what allow you to be here right now.
Mm-hmm.
They allow you to be here and show up every single day. I'm sure being in the Air Force and traveling around the world and seeing all these different things, like, it had to have been hard.
Oh yeah. Well, I was mainly in the medical field too. So I was I was a medical technician in the Air Force, and I worked in Boston. That's where I'm originally from. And I'd worked in the ER, and I don't think I told anybody this on my podcast, but I was actually there during the Boston Marathon bombing in the ER while I was working, like, because we were a level 1 trauma facility in the city. So like, I saw the most craziest, pardon my French, shit ever. Like, you can't, like, I tell my wife like the stuff that I've seen, and now I moved to Georgia, and I worked in a children's hospital and in the emergency room there, and like, I tell her all the stories that I've been through and seen, like, in the ER, and she's like, I don't know how you're sane right now, because the amount of stuff that I've dealt with, it's like, I'm like, you kind of need a little bit of a loose screw to actually, I think you need something like you need to be a little off to work in an emergency room because of all like the crazy crap you see throughout the day, and like the death and like trauma and all that stuff. Like, it's insane. Like, but it's like, I don't know how I keep my head level. It's so interesting.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful, and thank you for sharing that with me.
Oh, yeah.
I know our trauma is part of our story. Like, it's ours. Like, no one else is going to rewrite that. You're always the narrator in the story. And however we choose to encapsulate that story within our mind defines the decisions we make.
Yeah.
So for you right now, you're strong. That's your story. That's what you tell yourself every single time you walk into that. And I think that's what comes through in talking with you right now. Like, that's true. You're strong. You stand. You know what's important. You're in alignment with your values.
Yeah.
And that's something that people want all the time. But the way you got strong and the way you got to this point where you are in alignment is by being in those moments where you feel like you have a little bit of a screw loose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for that moment.
Yeah.
Like, and that's, someone said it to me the other day, this awesome guy, Nick Pags. He's a mindset coach that I've had the opportunity to work with, but his big thing was, we were talking about self-doubt, and we were talking about hardships that we've had in our life, and the idea behind the fact that, like, you can look at any moment and you could definitely find, like, we can't call it perfect because we have some negative story attached with it.
Mm-hmm.
But in actuality, we wouldn't be exactly where we are right now with the knowledge we have right now, right? Knowledge and awareness equals wisdom.
Yeah.
Like that, the knowledge and awareness equal wisdom. So if we don't have wisdom, we're choosing not to be aware of what we're surrounded by. We're choosing not to allow ourselves to be open to any sort of change, and we're choosing to be stuck or glued with an emotion that keeps us in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And if we live in the past, we're never going to see what's beautiful right in front of us.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing.
Yeah, God damn it, you're spitting hot fire out now, Jesus. So also with congratulations on the little one, by the way. I don't know if I said that earlier. So you have a 7-month-old. So do you kind of incorporate any of his work, any like bodyweight workouts with him involved with it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's at the point now he is aware of like what my wife and I are doing.
Okay.
Like he's like the other day he became aware of our dog. Like it's so cool because when we're born, we're nothing but pure like consciousness. That's all we are. We don't have any subconscious going.
Yep.
So it's so cool to watch this tiny human have recognition of what you're doing, and he thinks it's so funny now. He like laughs. Like I have a couple videos up of him just laughing at me like. I'm doing some like freestanding like handstand push-ups, and he thinks it's the funniest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm grunting and trying to stay balanced, and if I fall out of it, he's like cracking up because he's like, "What are you doing? Like, who defined this as something fun to do?" But it is. So a lot of the stuff I'll do when I'm on my hands, moving around on the floor, familiarizing myself with that stuff, or addressing the ground. He's usually around for that. You know, we have his little pack and play and his little seat in our basement, which is very fortunate. It's our gym, and it's also where my wife is doing her remote teaching right now. So he loves it down there. He just thinks it's so cool. Yeah. And he loves being able to crawl around on the gym floor and see us do all these things. And my dog is the one who really, since she was a little puppy, she's the one who if I'm crawling around, she immediately tries to follow me, tries to copy me. Like it's the same thing. Our
that's really cool.
Our pets see what we do, whatever it is. They want to join in, so it's always really fun.
Yeah.
I can remember when he was first born. We had a little bit of a hiccup in the beginning. My wife, when my son was born, was tested COVID positive when we went to the hospital for delivery, and we have no idea how that happened because we had been in quarantine for 6 weeks leading up to the birth. Mm-hmm. So it was insane. So those first 2 weeks, I was on full-time daddy duty at all times because I was very fortunate as a type 1 diabetic. Living with someone with COVID, I tested negative. And so that meant I was doing pretty much everything with TJ.
Yeah.
So we had this, I think it's called a boba. It's like a wrap, basically.
Yep.
And so we had our son in that, and I would wear that, and I would also be slowly going insane because I would be on like 2 hours of sleep. But I would do things, and he would calm down. Like I would do some squats, or I would do some lunges, or I would put a foot up and do a weird stretch, and he would just like, he would coo. I know he didn't know what was happening, but it would like calm him down so much. So those are some of like my fondest memories in the thick of it, was like just having him be on me and exist on me and feel the warmth of him while I moved. It was just so cool. And it really reminded me of why I do all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why do you have any kids?
I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So so with when Bennett was born, he's the oldest one. He's the 5-year-old. When he was born, we moved down from Massachusetts down to Georgia, and I didn't have a job yet. I didn't even know I was a type 1 diabetic at the time yet. And then I was like thinking of, okay, I'm a personal trainer. I know what I'm doing, and I don't have a job. So what do I do? And I was thinking of building a program for, stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads that have like young kids that they could do workouts with the kids. So like, I would have them do like, thrusters with the little one, squat, hold them and just like put them overhead, stuff like that. Or, do mountain climbers with your little kid, like right in front of you. Like, granted, hopefully you're not sweating all over them. Or like, or like doing push-ups and like blowing kisses in their belly and stuff like that. But that fell through. I didn't think it was a feasible, product to even push out just yet. So, and, so I just tried that, and I mean, my son now, he's down in the gym with me. He does a thing called Next Station where we'll do a minute of work, and then we'll have 10 seconds in between breaks to figure out where he can go next. Like he'll go on the rower. I just got him well, I have a lacrosse stick 'cause I used to play lacrosse, and he uses that as like we do Olympic lifts, and he's just starting to work on like back squatting now with the lacrosse stick. So he's just like constantly wants to do what Daddy does because he sees me what I do down here, and he wants to emulate the same thing what I do, which is pretty cool. So, and like I don't push him and force him to do any of this stuff. Like if he wants to go upstairs and go watch TV, he can go upstairs. You know, I'm not saying, hey, you need to stay down here and work out with me. That's I don't want to push him away to like, you know, learning fitness pretty much like that. So
yeah, I think that's so cool. That's so cool. That really gets me excited because I you know, it's my little boy. I want him to grow up and have fun with it. I think for me, I didn't really grow up in a house where physical fitness was at the forefront of it. So, like, for me, I remember going to gym class and be like, all right, this is horrible. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Also, like, in elementary school, it's like you wear the same clothes when you go. Like, you're wearing jeans and you're running around and you're like, this is horrible. Like, I am chafing, and I am like 7.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
So it's just really cool to see so many people sharing that experience with their kids now. I you know, because I'm sure my parents did things. Like my parents had they had a cumbersome bike in their room, so they went on there. I remember like seeing them do it, but they wouldn't tell me, hey, I'm going to work out now. They would just, or hey, I'm doing this because this. They would just be like, I'm going to do this and watch TV.
Yeah.
So I never understood what was happening.
Yeah.
So that's so cool. So,
yeah, the main thing is I just don't want him to be sitting down playing video games all day, and so this is a good way of doing it. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. So when he gets older, I mean, obviously I know you're going to teach him the right mechanics and stuff like that. So obviously that's what I'm trying to do with my son. So he's not there yet because he's not. What are they like? He's been going to like take tests and stuff like that for his like physical ability. His balance is getting a little bit better, but it's like it's a slow process, which is fine, you know, because you know he doesn't really know his body that well. So I think just using the lacrosse stick or using like little 3-pound dumbbells or a 3-pound kettlebell. I mean, I think that's perfectly fine for him to use. So
yeah. I still don't know my body that well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's any sign, I think, it's just a learning process always.
Yeah.
There's always something new that happens. And it's, you know, what was it like for you when you found out you were diabetic? Since for me, I've been diabetic longer at this point than I was alive before having diabetes. So what's it like being, you know, 35, 36, being diagnosed and then having everything kind of feel like it's changing? Like, what is that like?
I think I was in shock when I first got diagnosed because I got it in my pre-employment screening to the hospital I worked at, and that's the only way I knew. So, I was like probably shocked. My wife was more shocked than I was, and you know, I went through the motions. I'm like, well, I have it, so let's just do it. Because I've had a screw it, let's do it mentality. Obviously, with this podcast, I had the screw it, just do it, because I was supposed to do it with 2 other people, and it didn't really work out. So I was like, forget it, I'll just do it myself. And then the T-shirt company, Type 1 Lifting, it was like, you know, I kind of want to get this perfect, but you know, screw it, just do it. And so that's how, you know, just roll with the punches. Because obviously, you know, I have a learning disability, so that was tough. Like when I was younger, so you know, just try to roll with the punches and do the best I can. So that's the mentality that I've had for pretty much forever.
That's powerful. That's super powerful. So many people like try to get there.
Yeah.
So to innately have that from a young age, that must have shaped so many choices you've made over the years.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's times I'm like too relaxed, and it's just like I need to push further. My wife just like trying to kick me, like be like, hey, let's go. You know, you need to, you know, write to this person or do that. But I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just laid back because I know, like, hey, everything will work out fine. So
I don't think there's anything. You know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do think it's good that your spouse will push you to keep going and doing things.
Yeah.
'Cause my wife does the same thing, and I do the same thing for her. I think, but I do think having an attitude of knowing that things are happening, like things are going to happen. It's just you get back what you put out.
Yep.
It doesn't go the other way around. So,
exactly.
you're doing good stuff, and it's clearly working.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's reason to change.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. So we're getting close to the end. We have a couple questions. So the first one is, do you have any goals that you want to accomplish by the end of next year? I mean, obviously I usually say by the end of this year, but we only have like a couple days left. So do you have anything big that you're trying to attempt to for next year?
Yeah, actually I am. I'm in the process right now of training for last year I did this. Last year I trained for an ultra marathon.
Okay.
When for my 30th birthday, I trained for an ultra marathon. So I ran 31.2 miles, and all the money went to Movember to raise money for depression and anxiety research and awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. So for my 31st birthday, carrying into 2021, I am going to be doing a ultra long bike ride. I'm riding 156 miles from my home to Cape May, New Jersey, and all the funds I raise go to Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund.
Very cool.
That is my big thing, and
Yeah.
it's, I'm putting it out to the universe right now. If someone wants to sponsor that and give me a bike, that would be fantastic, because I rode a duathlon in 2019, and I didn't have money for a bike then, so I rode my dad's bike that was 25 years old and weighed 40 pounds. And I finished the race in 2 hours, but the bike fell apart as soon as I finished the race.
Wow.
And we don't have the funds to buy a new bike right now, so I've been doing all of my training on our spin bike that we have at home.
Okay.
So I've been sitting on a stationary bike on the weekend, 2 days in a row. I have ultra long rides, so they're usually about 2.5 hours. I'm just sitting there staring at a wall and just manifesting, thinking about what it's going to be like when I can go on a road bike again. So that's the big thing I want to be able to accomplish physically and mentally in 2021.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, do you have like a favorite book that you like to read or like to tell people to read?
Oh yeah, there's so many books I absolutely love, but possibly one of the best books I have ever read. There's two, and it's by the same author. It's by Ryan Holiday. And he wrote the book. He's done basically all the books he has written has been about Stoicism.
Yep.
So the ancient Greek philosophy of being a Stoic. But he breaks it down in a way using current and past historical figures and how it has applied to them. So number one book I always recommend is Obstacle is the Way.
Mm-hmm.
So Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And that basically talks about how, like, what I was talking about, basically, like, any moment where you feel like you're in the thick of it, when you're in the, pardon my French, the thick of the shit, like, that is going to either allow you to pivot and to keep going, find success, or you can make the choice to wallow in self-pity and self-doubt and not really see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
So that whole book is about that, and, there's awesome people within that book that he references. And the other one, which was his next book that came out after that, which is so good. Ego is the Enemy.
Yep, I've heard of that one too, yeah.
By Ryan Holiday.
Yeah.
And, ego is this thing. We all have it. We all have it, and it dictates all the choices we make, which is very unfortunate. And being able to separate yourself from ego is a challenge in and of itself, but we can do it.
Yep. Yeah.
We do it every day in some form or another, and that's what the whole book is about. So I highly recommend those two books for anyone who is wanting to work a little bit on mindset and to be able to figure out what the next step they should be taking is.
Okay, very cool. All right, so we're getting close. So here's the big one. So what would you tell a new person that recently got diabetes what to expect for the rest of their life?
Oh.
So you got a minute, so.
Okay. If I was to tell someone with diabetes what to expect for the rest of their life, to always be learning, to always be open to learning and making a shift and understanding that there are going to be moments where it is scary, but it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay. There's always someone in your corner. Even if you feel like there's not, your doctor's in your corner, your partner's in your corner, you're in your corner, you're your own cheerleading section. So you really have to be aware of that. And to not snub your nose at any options that fly your way. For me, I went from being like a huge meat eater all the time, and now I'm completely vegan. And for me, it's completely changed my diabetes. I went from an A1C of 6.7 down to 5.7. So for me,
Nice.
it completely changed.
Yeah.
And I don't push it on anyone else. I can just speak to how it's worked for me. Everyone's different.
Mm-hmm.
And I love a steak just as much as the next person. It's just my body didn't respond to it as well as it might for you or for someone else. So highly recommend, just don't snub your nose at other things. Just research it, see if it works for you, try it. And like I said, anything that doesn't work for you, just brush it aside. Take the things that work and fine tune it, prune it a little bit until it feels like it just runs like clear water.
Awesome. All right. And then where can people reach out to you if they have any questions they want to ask you, especially like fitness wise or whatever?
Yeah, I welcome all questions. I'm not an elitist when it comes to questions. You can find me on social media at coach.Chris McMahon. So that's my handle for Facebook, for Instagram. If you want to shoot me an email, you could do it via those two platforms too. It takes you that way. I also have a website, so anyone who wants to, maybe they don't want to train with me right now, maybe they want to check out a program. I have a couple of programs that people can do. I have two completely free programs that you can check out. 5 Secrets to Unlocking the Chin Up for anyone who's working on that. I know that in the CrossFit world, that's something that's really important, pull-ups and chin-ups, and to be able to do them efficiently. The more efficiently you can do it with proper mechanics, the easier it is to do those kipping ones with proper mechanics. So that's a thing, completely free. You can check it out. Also, the Unlock Your Hips program, completely free. You can check it out. For all of those things, you can either click.
Unfortunately, the episode recording got cut out. So if you want to reach his website, you can go to www.chris-mcmahon.com. And also, I will put this in the show notes as well.